Hi everyone, I'm Miranda and welcome to my cozy weekend vlog. I thought I'd share some of my cozy weekend in this week's video. Mum and I were both a bit under the weather last weekend with a really bad cold, so this weekend we've decided to just have a nice quiet one at home, enjoy reading and maybe going out for a little walk, but also just having a lovely cozy autumnal time, and I thought I'd share the weekend with you. So obviously I'm planning what I'll be reading this weekend. I have a few books on the go at the moment. My audiobook right now is A Murder is Announced by Agatha Christie, and I'm listening to the version read by Joan Hickson, which I'm really enjoying. This mystery is set in the autumn actually, so it's quite a good time of year to read it. And there's a very clever twist to this mystery. I always enjoy listening out for the clues that come up in this book, which I remember the first time I read it, I noticed the clues, but I didn't realise their significance. There's one in particular that I think is just so clever. So I always enjoy sort of listening out for that. And in some ways, this is one of Agatha Christie's more dated mysteries, I would say. But I do like the twist to it a lot. I just think it's a very, very clever one. So I enjoy it for that reason very much. And like I said, it's quite a good autumnal one too. It's a Miss Marple mystery as well, and I always love Miss Marple. I think after this I'll probably move on to listening to Halloween Party, which is a Poirot mystery by Agatha Christie. That will be perfect with Halloween being next weekend. So once I've finished up with A Murder is Announced, I'll start listening to Halloween Party. And then a book I've almost finished is this one, The Mystery of Mrs. Blencarrow by Mrs. Oliphant. I've been reading quite a few books for Victober. At first kind of accidentally, and then I realised I was actually reading a bit on a theme of Victorian literature in October, so then I started to make some deliberate Victober choices. I'll chat to you a bit later about the Victober books that I've read, but this is one I'm just about to finish. As you can see, it's a Persephone book. It actually contains two novellas by the Victorian writer Mrs. Oliphant. And the first one is The Mystery of Mrs. Blencarrow. And then the next one, I can't actually remember the name of it. I think it's Queen Eleanor and Fair Rosamond. I'm really enjoying this very much. The Mystery of Mrs. Blencarrow is such a great mystery to read in the winter actually. It would be a good choice if you wanted a snowy, wintry read. It's set over the Christmas holidays, and there are some lovely scenes of ice skating and a ball that happens on Christmas Eve and things like that, but there's also some real mystery and suspense underlying the story too, and it's such a good read. I really recommend this one. The second one is about a seemingly happy married woman who discovers that her husband is leading a double life. Both of these novellas, in fact, revolve around the breakup of a marriage happening at the end of both novellas. So they're sort of linked by that common theme. But I'm really enjoying this, and I'm going to finish up the second novella probably today. And then of course I'm going to start reading Persuasion this weekend. We'll be discussing this book as the Comfort Book Club choice at the end of next week, next Friday. So I think just a few days after this video is going to go out actually. So I don't have very long to read Persuasion, but it's a really short read. It's a sort of book I've read many times in the past. It's my very favourite Jane Austen novel, so I know it really well. But this weekend I'm going to settle down and read it, and I've got a few different editions I'll be looking at actually. I'll probably read this Penguin cloth-bound edition of the book, which also has some footnotes, and it has a good introduction as well, so I'm going to enjoy that. And I've also got this old Virago edition, and I want to read the introduction by Margaret Drabble for it. Sometimes I collect different editions of favourite classic books, not only for the different covers and just liking the different editions, but I'm often on the lookout for different introductions that I think would be really good as well. So this one I really want to read the introduction for it. And then another edition I'll be looking at a lot this weekend is this gorgeous annotated edition of Persuasion. This one I can't wait to read. I got it fairly recently in anticipation of the Comfort Book Club, so I haven't read it yet, but it looks like a beautiful edition to read. And of course there are lots of very interesting notes and illustrations going all through the book. So I'm excited to dive into this one. It's a big book, so I'll probably have to sit at the table to read this one. So I don't know if I'll read the whole novel this way, or if I'll kind of skim this and look at some of the notes in particular, is why I'll be skimming through this one, is to really read the annotated notes. But yes, I'm really looking forward to looking at this more closely. And then of course I've got this beautiful Barbara Heller edition of Persuasion, which I'll be looking at as well, because it's got all of the wonderful handwritten letters inside it. I just had this one loose for easy access, but there are lots of letters in the little sleeves in between the pages, and this will just be so fun to look at the letters that go with the book. So I've got this one. I actually have to photograph this today as well, because I was sent duplicate copies of Persuasion, and actually the other two editions like this that Barbara Heller has done with the letters inside. The publisher kindly sent me some extra editions of Persuasion, Little Women and Pride and Prejudice to share as giveaways on my Instagram account. So I have to photograph this one today and put up the giveaway over this weekend. So I'll do that at some point. But I'm really looking forward to also just having a relaxed weekend. So happy to be feeling much better than last weekend and able to read and enjoy my books. And I can't wait to dive into Persuasion. We've had a pretty low-key morning, lots of cups of tea and chat, which has been really nice. And I've also been doing some ironing actually and some practical chores, because I was very excited to get a shipment of clothing that was kindly sent to me by Simple Retro, who got in touch and let me choose some clothes that then I could review and feature on my YouTube channel. So some of the clothes arrived quite crumpled, so I've just been ironing them, but let me get them so that I can show them to you, and I've got to hang them up in my wardrobe and fit them in with my clothes. Okay, so I've just brought the clothes in from Simple Retro that I chose. I thought that these would appeal to my followers as well, because I think many of you, like me, enjoy retro inspired clothing and sort of vintage patterns and silhouettes. So I thought that you would like to hear about this brand as well. Like I said, Simple Retro got in touch with me and offered to let me pick out some clothing so that I would feature what I chose on my channel and give a review of their clothing. I really liked the sound of the brand, which is based in the States. It was founded in the States by a group of female friends who would get together for brunch, and also they'd go shopping together, looking for thrifted clothes, and they very much shared a love of vintage clothing themselves. And some of them decided to found Simple Retro, which is a brand that has clothing very much for women who like vintage fashion. It is for the modern woman as well, but a lot of the silhouettes are very retro inspired, which is something I really liked about the clothing when I had a look at the website. I also loved that it was a female founded brand. They still employ a majority of women, and it's sustainable too in that they make quite small batches of their clothing so as to prevent waste as much as possible. So they do tend to sell out of things quite quickly. I had some trouble actually choosing all of the things that I wanted, because a lot of the things that I initially went for had actually sold out. So they do produce quite small amounts of clothing, but I love that that means that you don't get a lot of waste. In general too, the clothes are quite accessible in terms of price, which is obviously great as well. But let me show you what I picked out. So I went for this lovely dress, which really reminded me of Anne of Green Gables. I think it's the slightly Edwardian style to it. The lovely autumnal colour. I went for lots of autumnal colours, as you'll see with this little clothing haul. And I was really taken with the details on this dress. I loved the frilled collar with the lace around the edge. The cuffs as well have that lovely frill and lace edging, which I really liked. I love how it has these nice sort of details to the design. The colour is perfect for autumn, and I also thought the slightly plain background would look really nice with a brooch or a cameo, something like that, pinned onto it as well, which I also thought was quite Anne of Green Gables. I really see this as a lovely everyday dress for me, but that also is quite special too. And it's definitely the sort of dress that I can see enjoying reading my book, having a cozy weekend in, maybe going out picking some apples, doing a bit of baking, that sort of thing, but quite an Anne of Green Gables inspired weekend for myself in this dress too. And then the next piece I chose is this lovely skirt from Simple Retro. And I went for this because I didn't actually have a sort of plain everyday skirt that would be practical for lots of different outfits. And I really liked the shape and design of this one with the pleating all around it. I thought how nice that was. Grey is such a practical colour that I can wear all through the autumn and winter. And I just really liked the shaping and the length of this skirt. I can wear it with lots of snuggly jumpers throughout the autumn and winter. So another piece that I will wear a lot, I'm sure. And then I went for another dress, this lovely green one. Another beautiful dress for autumn, but this will really take me into winter as well and the Christmas season. Again, I loved the detailing on this dress. So what really appealed to me was the sort of cut of the bodice, which is slightly more unusual. It's more fitted in the bodice, which contrasted well with the brown dress that I got, which is looser. But I loved the lovely big collar on this too, with the embroidered floral design. I think that's just so pretty. You know I love my florals, so I really liked the design of that embroidery on the collar, and it's also on the cuffs, which I really like. The green is just beautiful for autumn, but like I said, it would be nice for Christmas as well. And I also loved the detailing of the hem at the bottom going out into a bit of a ruffle, which is just very pretty. It's a very feminine style of dress, this one, and it's one that I'm going to really enjoy wearing, I know. And then finally I went for this lovely white blouse. Again, I thought this was just such a practical piece. I don't have a plain white blouse like this actually, so this is a great addition to my wardrobe. Everything is linked in the description box down beneath, so you can have a look for all of the clothes that I got. They'll all be linked there. This one I went for because I really liked the cut of it and the design, the sort of pleating down the front, and the pretty buttons that look like slightly sort of mother of pearl style. I thought that was really pretty. And then the shape again of the slightly puffed sleeves, the pretty lace around the collar, and the nice buttons and the bit of lace at the edging of the cuffs was also lovely. This blouse I can see just wearing with trousers. It would look really nice on its own. I can also layer it with a knitted vest over top. I think that will look really nice as it gets colder. And I could also wear it tucked into skirts. So I thought that this was such a stylish but practical blouse, and yeah, I just really loved the design of this one, so I'm really thrilled. But anyway, those are all of the pieces that I got from Simple Retro. As I said, I'll link to everything in the description box so you can check them out if you're interested as well. But now I'm going to go outside. I'm hoping to bake something this afternoon, and I've been kindly lent the key to the orchard near us, so I'm going to go along there now, make the most of a bit of sunshine today, which is a rare occurrence this week, and maybe get some apples or something and just enjoy a bit of fresh air. So I'll take you along with me. So I'm in the garden near us. I'm going to pick a few apples and also just enjoy the beautiful sunshine today. I'm wearing one of my new Simple Retro dresses. I thought I may as well change into this one as I'm in a real Anne of Green Gables mood, and it felt like the perfect dress to come and to wear when I go to an apple orchard and just appreciate October. so it is Sunday now. I had a really lovely, cozy, snuggly, slow morning. It was absolutely pouring with rain. It's very dark today. The rain has gone off a bit now, but it was just bucketing down earlier. So it was so nice to snuggle up with my tea and Persuasion. I read a bit of this yesterday and I've been reading more this morning and so enjoying it. It's such a wonderful autumnal book, just the perfect book to curl up with on a wet October day. I love how it starts in September and goes all through the autumn. I'm just at the part where Anne Elliot and Captain Wentworth are about to meet for the first time since their engagement was broken off, so it's always one of my favourite bits of the book. I'm so enjoying this, and I do think it's just a perfect autumn read. There's that slightly melancholic air to it as well, which is perfect for autumn. So I'm so enjoying this, but I wanted to chat with you a bit today about some of the books that I've been reading recently that actually lend themselves really well to the Victober theme of reading Victorian literature in October, or books that are set in Victorian times. And I was just reading and then I suddenly realised that actually I was sort of reading a bit on this theme without realising it, and then I chose some books deliberately to centre on that theme. So I read A Single Thread of Moonlight by Laura Wood. I wasn't intending this as a Victober read, but actually it's such a good read if you are doing Victober or want to next year. It's also just a great book to read in the autumn. It's pretty much all set in October, and it's a lovely autumnal romance. If you are in the mood for something sweet and cozy to curl up with on a rainy day, then I really recommend this book. It was so light and so fun to read. It's a twist on the Cinderella story. It's set in 1899, so right at the end of the Victorian era. And it's about a young girl whose mother dies and her father remarries. And she hates her new stepmother, and at least one of her stepsisters is really quite mean to her as well. Her father then dies in suspicious circumstances and she ends up running away from home, but as she gets older, you find her working as a seamstress for a dressmaker, and she makes beautiful creations, gorgeous dresses that are bought by the upper crust of Victorian society. So she's working in London, but she's determined to get home to the countryside. She was from quite an aristocratic background, so she's a bit of a princess in hiding in some ways herself. And she wants to return to her ancestral home to essentially accuse her stepmother of having murdered her father and to find out how the stepmother accomplished this. She of course meets a young man who ends up helping her, although unknowingly he helps her in this plan, and she ends up assuming a different identity in order to reconnect with her stepmother. Her stepmother doesn't know her, she doesn't recognise her, so last time she saw her she was very young. So there's lots of twists and turns to this story. Like I said, it's definitely inspired by Cinderella, but the heroine has a lot more self-agency in this. She's definitely her own sort of fairy godmother, which I really enjoyed in this book. As you know, I'm a big fan of Laura Wood's writing. I've read all her other books, and I do just think this is the perfect cozy romance for October if you're in the mood for something just sweet and light and easy to read. So that was one that I read, and then I picked up, because of course with my Persephone event coming up, I've been wanting to read some Persephones, and I've been looking at some of the ones I haven't read yet, and this was one of them. It was fairly recently republished by Persephone, and it's The New Magdalene by Wilkie Collins. This also starts in October. It has a little intro where it says the year and it says when it starts. Yes, first scene. So it says the place is France, the time is autumn in the year 1870. So another good choice for Victober. And I really enjoyed reading this. I wasn't sure what to expect. I'm a big fan of The Woman in White and The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins, but I'd never read The New Magdalene before. But as it was a Persephone one, I thought I should pick it up, and it made a really good autumnal read as well. It's quite a good book to curl up with on a cold evening. It goes from the autumn into the winter, and it definitely has a lot of the twists and turns of plot that you would expect from a Wilkie Collins novel. It was very forward thinking for its time, and much of that is to do with the subject matter of the book and the heroine. But that makes this such an interesting book to read because it deals with a reformed prostitute, essentially. A young woman who, through circumstances, ended up in a situation when she was raped as a very young woman, and then ended up having to work as a prostitute before going to a refuge for women like her, which helped her to try to sort of re-enter society at that time. But this book really explores how impossible it is for her to become a part of society again. So I would say this is quite a moral book in many ways, and it explores so many of these issues of the time in an interesting way. There's a lot of melodrama in the book. This is a real sensationalist novel, and it's quite fun to think of the young women who were reading this at the time. I think it was originally serialized, and each chapter kind of ends on quite a cliffhanger often, so they would have been eagerly anticipating each installment, but it also would have been a bit of a shocking book at the time because of the subject matter. But also it really helps to raise awareness of the plight of women. So I really enjoyed this book because it has an unusual heroine for a Victorian novel who really takes centre stage, and she does in fact have quite a lot of her own agency in the story as well. She makes her own decisions, and there's an identity swap that occurs in this, which is classic Wilkie Collins, of course. If you know The Woman in White, then that won't surprise you at all. So there's switches of identity. The plot isn't as intricate and it isn't as good as something like The Woman in White. I think that's where it falls down a bit, but there's just so much of interest in terms of what it says about society at that time and of Wilkie Collins's own ideas as well, that it's really a worthwhile read, and actually ended up being a really, really good Victober read. So I was so glad that I read that. And then continuing the Victober theme, I thought I would reread this Persephone book, which is a favourite of mine. It's the first in a trilogy of memoirs by Molly Hughes, and it's called A London Child of the 1870s. And because this was written, set in the 1870s, it was really interesting to contrast it to a memoir of the 1870s. This is a very sweet, heartwarming book, although there is a touch of real sadness that comes in right at the end of the story. But Molly Hughes, in general, recounts a very, very happy childhood, growing up in a big family of mainly brothers, and that she was the youngest and the only girl in the family. But this happy childhood spent in London, the daughter of a sort of middle-class family, and it's really interesting. You get a real slice of social history through reading this, and I really enjoyed that. There's also wonderful descriptions of the family going to Cornwall, where they had relatives, so it describes a Victorian London, but also Cornwall, and also all of the difficulties of traveling and making a journey like that in those days and going on the train. It's just fascinating. I really recommend this one, and it made a lovely book to read again. I hadn't read it for a very long time, so I really enjoyed returning to this one. And then again, continuing the Victober theme, I thought, let's read another Persephone, and I picked up The Mystery of Mrs. Blencarrow by Mrs. Oliphant. So I mentioned this one already. It has 2 novellas in it. The first one is The Mystery of Mrs. Blencarrow. I finished the second one yesterday evening and I really enjoyed it. The first one is my favourite though. I think The Mystery of Mrs. Blencarrow is the strongest one, and like I said, that's a really good wintry read. It's set around Christmas. It's not a particularly festive story in many ways because there's a lot of underlying sadness and tension to the book, but I so enjoyed it, and it was just the right mix of a little bit mysterious, but I also enjoyed that it had a woman at the centre of the story as well. So that made it a great read too, and both of the novellas I enjoyed a lot. So definitely recommend this one if you haven't read it already. But yes, so yesterday it was so lovely to go to the orchard and to get some apples. I also read a bit of Persuasion in the garden when I was there, which was really lovely. I'm glad I took advantage of the sunshine. But then when I got back, I had to quickly photograph a copy of Persuasion for my giveaway. You'll see, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen this post already, but I'll pop it up here for those of you who might want to enter the giveaway because it ends on Saturday, the 29th of October. So do check that out. It's a beautiful edition of Persuasion curated by Barbara Heller with the gorgeous handwritten letters inside. I've showcased it on YouTube already. But yeah, when I got home yesterday, the light was going, so I really had to quickly photograph that. And we had to go to the grocery store to pick up a few ingredients. For one thing, I needed a lemon for this apple cake, so I didn't get a chance to bake yesterday. So I want to bake today so that we can have an apple cake for this week, which I think will be lovely. But I've got to get lunch ready. We're going to have some lunch, so I'm going to do that, and then this afternoon I'll bake the cake. So I'm looking forward to that. I've just had an exciting delivery from Emma Bridgewater because my grandmother very kindly gave me a birthday check, and I ordered a couple of things from Emma Bridgewater with it, and they've finally arrived. So I'm going to just open it up. I really love Emma Bridgewater china, as you can tell from the dresser behind me. There's something about living in the countryside that has made me really appreciate Emma Bridgewater even more than I did when I lived in the city. I always had some pieces of her china, but I've had a lot more since moving to the countryside. It's so special to just look out the window and to see all of the things that she uses on her pottery, because her pottery is very seasonal and it's very countryside inspired, especially the English countryside, of course. And I think that's why it really speaks to me, because now that I live in the English countryside, I recognise all of the motifs that she uses throughout the year for her pottery designs. So let's open this. Down there for now. Okay. Boxes within boxes. Alright, well, apologies for some Christmas content already, but I couldn't resist this set of 2 Christmas mugs. I think they're adorable. This one that says Cosy on it. It's the sort of log cabin pattern. I think that's so sweet. And then the Joy mug is also adorable. I think these will just make such a cute little set together. I love the Cosy and the Joy. So I'm going to obviously put these away for Christmas, but I couldn't resist getting them because I knew that I really wanted them for the start of the festive season. Mum and I we're using both of these for our cups of tea in the mornings in December. It's just going to be so much fun. I can't wait to get cozy and festive. And then this I ordered because there was a discount on her Halloween products. So there was a bit of a sale on Halloween stuff. And so I picked up one Halloween thing that I've been wanting, and happily it's arrived in time for Halloween too, so I can use it this week and obviously next Monday. Open it up. Let's see. Everything's always very well wrapped, which is good. Oh yes, here we are. I think this is so cute. It's her cocoa mug, and this time of year I really do love to have a cup of cocoa in the evenings, especially on a Friday. That's my Friday night treat often when my video goes up and I'm a bit tired and I'm sort of replying to comments and things. I'll make a cup of hot chocolate. And I thought how cute this one was for Halloween. It says large dose of good magic on the front, and on the back eye of frog and toe of newt. But I really liked the large dose of good magic. I thought that was really, really sweet. So I can add this to the dresser as well. I'll put it here for now. I'll sort that out. But yes, so that was a really lovely little surprise that it arrived. It was meant to arrive on Monday, but then it ended up coming the day early. So a lovely Sunday treat. I'm going to put these away, bring them out later on for Christmas, and this I will just wash up, take the stickers off, and then I'll be able to use it, which is lovely. But I better get on now with making our apple cake as well. I'm looking forward to that. So I popped the apple cake in the oven, and while it's baking, I've come up to my room because I'm going to have a look through my autumnal cards, because I have a few thank you cards to write for friends and relatives who gave me gifts. Not this many, but I always have fun looking through all of my cards and picking out which ones I think will be most appropriate for the person I'm writing to. I know you always like to have a look at my stationery as well, so I'll film a little cutaway so you can see some of my autumn card collection. And I'm just going to sit and have my tea and write a few thank you cards, and then hopefully by the time I've done that, the cake will be ready and I can take it out, have a slice once it's cooled, and enjoy a cozy evening reading a bit more of Persuasion. I'm excited, it sounds perfect. I also meant to say I've been listening to more of A Murder is Announced. I'm just at the denouement where Miss Marple explains it all. So I had it on while I was making the cake. I always like to listen to an audiobook whilst I'm cooking and things like that. And I'm going to put it on again now whilst I'm writing my thank you cards, because it doesn't take a lot of brain power to write a thank you card, so I enjoy listening to something at the same time when I do a simple task like that. So I'm almost finished, and then once this is done, I'm going to move on to Halloween Party. So I've just got the cake out of the oven. It looks really good. I'll show you there. So I'm going to let this cool now, and I can't wait to have a slice later on. I love Dorset apple cake, so this will be a real treat to have later in the week as well. But I'm going to just read some more of Persuasion, because I need to get through that. And then later, when this is cool, I'll cut the cake. I've just cut the cake, as you can see. I can't wait to try this. I'm going to bring in a slice for Mum into the living room and we're going to enjoy it together. We might even watch a bit of Persuasion. My very favourite film is the 1995 one with Amanda Root and Ciarán Hinds. That's just, I think, one of the best films ever, and definitely the best film of Persuasion. I'm trying to decide whether I can steel myself to watch the new Netflix one. I've really read terrible reviews and I watched the preview and was a bit horrified by some of the lines in it already, but I think I probably should still watch it just to see what they've done with Persuasion. Let me know if you've watched it and what you thought of it. But I think this evening I'm going to watch my favourite production that just has all of the cosy feels for me and will be the perfect end to this weekend. So I'm going to bring apple cake into the living room, make some more tea, and Mum and I will get cosy and watch Persuasion. I think that sounds fabulous. I hope you had a wonderful weekend too, and thank you so much for watching this extra video this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember, I've put the links to the simple retro clothes that I got in the description box, as well as a few other links from this video. I've shared the apple cake recipe too, where I originally showed it on YouTube, so you can always have a go at baking this as well. But yes, thank you so much for watching, and extra big thanks to those of you who pressed the super thanks button on my last few videos lately. You're so much appreciated. But thank you to everyone for all of the lovely birthday wishes as well. It was such a lovely birthday and I really appreciate all of your lovely messages. So I'll see you again on Friday for the Comfort Book Club discussion of Persuasion. I can't wait. See you then. Bye.